Masteries, Shadow Legends, welcome to the video. Today we have a guide on Belz the Reckoner. First, send some positive vibes, some love your way. Merry Christmas if you celebrate. If you're watching this in the future, well, I guess everybody's watching this in the future, technically, right? Either way, guys, Happy New Year, Happy 2029, whenever you're watching this video. Today, we're going to talk about the new, at the time of this recording, legendary, guaranteed legendary champion in Belz the Reckoner. I'm going to give my opinion on this champion, where you can use him, and just how good is he. We'll even rank him as well. But first, the long-anticipated results of the last community tab poll. Should I do champion request shoutouts at the beginning of these guide videos, as we have been doing for over a year now, or do they just slow things down? 64% of you guys, myself included, I kind of voted. I'm sure I really tipped the scales here with my one vote, voted to continue the shout outs. So we'll continue that going into the new year. I haven't been keeping up with them lately, so we'll get back on top of it and bring those back. Thank you guys. Either way, no matter how you voted, thank you for keeping the champion guide requests coming here on the channel. We've done over 450 champion guides in about a year and a half, so almost one a day. On pace for, we're slowing down a little bit to like 3 or 4 a week lately, but I enjoy it. Hopefully you guys do as well. Find these videos useful. All right. Belz the Reckoner. So this dude was, well, he's still, I haven't even cleared his little red dot, so he's brand new on the account. I did use him in a Hydra team or two, just testing him out. I tested out his damage in various locations just out of curiosity. Took a look at his multipliers, but to, just to put it up front, I've only been playing this champion for about 2 days now. So, subject to change as always here, but I think I have a pretty good handle on this champion. First thing that strikes me about him is he's pretty unique, and a lot of players can certainly find some utility out of him, especially in Hydra Clan Boss. Let's talk about why. First off, the base stats are really nice. 23k on the HP, super tanky, 1277. That HP plus that defense makes him an absolute tanky. Spirit Affinity, which is nice. Spirit Affinity can be, a little bit more difficult to find, just depending on what you're looking for, but especially these debuffs that he brings on his A3. On his A1, it's Fiend Feller. Attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance when booked of placing the big version of decreased defense for 2 turns. Will ignore 5% of the target's defense for each debuff on them. Now, this makes this A1 capable of hitting exceptionally hard, especially in areas, again, like Hydra, but, bosses normally where we really try to stack up those debuffs, right? So, can be valuable. Chimera as well, right? So it can be a very hard-hitting A1, which gives him added utility for ally attack teams, right? Because he's obviously going to be going in with his A1. On the Gift of Pain, his A2 ability, it is a 3-turn cooldown when booked, attacks one enemy. Before attacking, he steals all buffs from the target, and then repeat the attack against all enemies if the initial target is under a leech debuff, which he brings on his A3. So it ends up being an extremely powerful A2 ability with that buff steal on there as well, and it hits decently hard. Not as hard as the A1 from my findings thus far. We'll take a look at the multipliers, but keep in mind, the ignored defense is not going to be factored in, obviously, to the multipliers. On Terra Breach, kind of like the name of his abilities. They keep the unique names here that kind of fit the champion as well, coming with the skill names. 3-turn cooldown when booked. Attacks all enemies. 100% chance of placing a block buffs, and a leech on all enemies for 2 turns. Also, fills a turn meter by 5% for each debuff placed by this skill. This is a really sneaky and great addition to this skill, for a number of reasons. First off, if you're going to be using this champion, which hopefully you are, he's pretty good. I'm just going to ruin the ending of the video. I think he's kind of a, maybe in the A- category, I would say. It's tough. If you need what he's bringing, he's an A+, or S tier. It just depends, as with everything in this game and in life in general, right? Anyway, fills the champion's turn meter by 5% for each debuff placed by the skill is very, very valuable. Obviously, especially against Hydra, you're landing 2 debuffs against 4 heads, so you're getting a lot of turn meter back. And why this is so important is it allows you to get back to block buffs, especially when you're doing an auto run. It can be difficult to time and keep that block buffs up there all the time. Now, you should be cognizant going against Magic Affinity. You're going to have an issue there, and it could ruin your run with Poison Clouds, or at least ruin your damage, right? But that getting back the turn meter allows him to get back to his abilities a little bit faster, especially this ability, right? Which allows him, especially when built speedy, we want him fast, allows him to be a capable damage dealer and a debuffer where you can have, you know, not 100% uptime, but a really good uptime, 100% uptime if you have a debuff extender on the team alongside of him, right? So really nice there to have that turn meter, and leech and block buffs are can kind of be, difficult debuffs to find, especially on an AoE. On the passive, March of Reckoning. This is cool too. Increases champions' max HP by 5% up to 50%. Very significant. And crit damage up to 50% for each debuff placed by this champion. So his overall damage on short battles didn't blow me away. But getting that massive HP boost, he's an HP damage-based champion, and that crit damage really does make a difference in longer battles, right? So I think you guys are probably trained, especially if you've been playing this game for any amount of time now, we're trained to kind of recognize these escalating stat mechanics from Varl and Ninja. Champions like that, they get stronger. Toshiro, right? They get stronger over time. They're so valuable, especially in Hydra. All right. We have Aura Accuracy Aura in all battles by 60, a very useful aura. I've been using Accuracy Auras more and more often, sometimes even over speed, depending on the team, just because, you know, I'm trying to build everybody to min-max my damage, so having that extra accuracy as an aura is super useful. I want to take a look at hellhades.com right out the gate here. I want to take a look at his area rankings, his multipliers as well. They give him a 4 overall out of 5, so a pretty high, respectable ranking for this champion. As we go down, I want to see what they say about him because he's brand new in the game. Feel free to fast forward if you don't care. But they said a tough-to-kill champion whose mission is to take down enemies, bring a versatile kit that excels in various encounters. His passive increases max HP and his crit damage for each debuff he places, looking to sustain and the damage of his active skills. His A3, applying leech and block buffs, and fills his turn meter by 5% for each debuff place. This combination provides healing for the team, preventing enemies from gaining buffs in encounters like Hydra, and allows him to cycle through his skills more quickly. All things that we mentioned. The leech debuff also synergizes with his A2, turning the single target into an AoE if the initial target is under a leech. This also removes buffs from all enemies, making it especially useful against bosses like Chimera, where leech is required for easy trials and buff removal counters, mirror buffs from the Ran form. Lastly, his A1 decreases defense and ignores 5% of the target's defense for each active debuff, adding more potential damage or damage potential to his kit. We mentioned basically all of those things, but it's nice to see that they agree on hellhades.com. They're seeing the same things that I'm seeing. Hard Spider, Hard Dragon, Hydra Clan Boss. Do they have Chimera added yet? It doesn't look like they've added the Chimera ranking, unless I'm just missing it here. Magma Dragon and Eternal Dragon are his best areas. Faction Wars, godlike ranking. In the arena, they give him a 4 out of 5. In the arena, I don't see him like screaming arena, especially just the way that his kit works, you know, landing the debuffs, polymorph considerations, the damage over time, giving the advantage to longer battles. So I'd probably give him a little bit lower in the arena personally, but on the go second team, it could be interesting because of how tanky he is. And again, this can still benefit you in a tanky go second team, but it wouldn't be my first choice on him. But now I'm all over the place here. It is cool to steal all the buffs from the target, but it's only going to happen if they're under a leech, so it's not like you can open up with that move, right? Anyway, he has a 0.22 multiplier on his A1. It's an average damage ranking on the A1 or rating. However, keep in mind all that juicy ignore defense that we talked about, right? On his A2, it's a godlike damage rating. The multiplier is a 0.3 HP, a 0.25 if it's an AoE on the AoE. So they give it a godlike, so maybe I stand corrected. I said that I wasn't blown away compared to the A1, but maybe that just speaks to the prowess of his A1, ignoring that defense. Either way, on his A3 is an average damage breakdown of 0.27 HP. I always like to kind of compare champions to an Eryx, because a lot of players either have her or have a familiarity. I always struggle with that word. It's embarrassing. Familiarity. There we go. If I just scream it, it kind of just vomits out of my mouth. Let's compare those multipliers to Eryx. She's another HP-based damage dealer, right? So she has, I want to say he's very similar you know, in damage, just multipliers, and his base HP, to be fair, right, to an Eric's. She has 23k HP, so the scalability is roughly the same. A 0.22 on her A1, a 0.35 on her A2 ability. So hits a little bit harder from an Eric's than we can expect here from our guy. That's not to say that he doesn't bring his own advantages. Obviously, the Eric's doesn't on Belz the Reckoner. All right, that's the kit. The reviews so far in-game, they love him in Hydra. Just all around like a 90 A- again type score if you're to convert or extrapolate those ratings, and I tend to agree. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at how I have him built. It's going to shock you guys, I think, how I've built this champion. I don't have him awakened, by the way, but if I did, I'd probably go with either Crushing Rend or Cruelty. Crushing Rend on obviously 5 or 6 stars, probably just 6. I'd probably just go Cruelty on this champion. Anyway, here he is, Belz. What the heck, Ash? Why are you putting an HP-based champion in Merciless gear? Why? Why? I'm doing it because Merciless is the most cracked, busted set in the game. Even though I can't take advantage of the attack here, I'm getting no HP, I still think it's the best build for Belz. I even, like, just to make sure, I even messaged a couple endgame players and like, yeah, Merciless is just so broken, of course. Why? Well, we get the 35% ignore defense out of a 6-piece. And then with a champion like Belz, I love the idea of having a reflex set on him. And he's dealing damage on every ability anyway. So might as well throw him in the Merciless, right? 30% chance to decrease a random skills cooldown by 1 turn when dealing damage. So now we can kind of min-max his damage with the ignore defense and get that reflex light. Instead of a 40%, we get a 30%, but hey, it's one set, right? So I wouldn't even call anybody crazy for going all the way down to a 9-piece and then building in the little Relentless set on top of the reflex set, on top of the Cruel or Savage set, right? So let's see what they recommend, by the way. Other considerations on hellhades.com. I'll link the Hell Hades link to give them some love as well. You should check out the website. They have their mastery recommendations as well. Stun for PvE, taunt, because he has a potential 2 AoEs, taunting, immortal, and regen. Immortal regen is kind of I like to reserve that more for my solo champions. Not to say that he can't solo maybe on pure damage alone. For PvP, they recommend protection, stone skin, immunity, and stun. I wonder why they recommend protection. Well, I would not recommend protection. He doesn't have any buffs, so there's nothing to protect there, unless I'm missing something. But you could consider a shield or bolster set on him as well, right? Because he has such great HP that there's a multitude of ways you can take advantage of a champion like this. All right, he's going to keep everyone else alive with a leech too, or at least help in that regard. So I put a perception set on him as well because we want accuracy, obviously, on him. So if you don't have Merciless gear lying around, you want to save that for your attack-based nukers, I totally understand. I would probably go with a shield set, a bolster set, maybe a regen, immortal pieces, or just triple perception, double perception, and an immortal, something like that. Relentless gear, reflex gear, everything kind of works on Belz the Reckoner. So we have HP on the ring, we have crit damage on the amulet, we have accuracy on the banner, we have speed on the boots, we have HP percentage on the chest, and we have crit damage on the gauntlets. You can go, if you're early game or early to mid game, going with a little bit of a tankier build, a little bit more of a support vibe, and crit rate instead of crit damage on the gauntlets, totally fine. You could even just go all out tankage and get your damage from other sources out there, even though you're leaving a lot of damage off the table. This guy can actually deal a lot of damage, but I could understand why, you know, I've already got damage like totally covered here. I want to use him for the debuffs only. You could build him in a perception or 2 with HP percentage on his gauntlets as well, right? So you can just build him tankier as a support. Wouldn't be my favorite choice, but it's a consideration. This is a champion that, again, you're really going to want to book him if you're going to want to use him. I think his best use case in the end game, personally, so far, is going to be for Hydra in Chimera, for reasons that they actually mentioned on the Hell Hades thing, right? Chimera, really cool to have the buff removal and to bring block buffs, and leech for trials. Going to be tanky, going to keep your team alive as well. Fantastic, right? A hard-hitting A1, good with ally attackers, as we already mentioned. For Hydra, he has the damage escalation, and block buffs on an AoE, or block buffs, on an AoE, excuse me, is kind of hard to find, My go-tos are Supreme Galek, our Archmage Helmet, Wallmaster Athorian, but those are all legendary champions, and they can be hard to find. So I feel like one of your teams in Hydra, odds are, can use this champion, right? Block buffs for me is an essential, especially on like auto teams, just an essential debuff to have on my Hydra battles. So anyway, those are the masteries that I went with here, guys. I'll move myself over. I didn't overthink anything here. I have them booked, so there's nothing that I need from Sniper. I went with War Master for a little bit extra damage there. Of course, you could experiment with Helm Smasher if you wanted to ignore more defense, especially on that A1 ability. Nothing wrong with that. If you were going to try to run him in the arena, I would probably err on the side of Helm Smasher. But for longer, consistent damage, I'm going to go War Master. He only has a single target on his A1, so I'm not going to be using this champion on with Giant Slayer and Fire Knight or anything like that. Yeah, those would be my recommendation. One with the accuracy masteries and a little bit of damage. All right, let's go ahead and try him out in battle. Before we jump into Hydra, guys, let's just go into a random dungeon here. Ice Golem. We'll go Ice Golem hard 10. I thought it would be fun to kind of put together a bunch of the newer champions with a couple old kind of staples, right? So we have this team with Stalk, the Broken, with Artak, 2 previous fusions, Cernic, and Lady Noelle, another fusion. Man, there's a lot of fusions. And then Belz, right? So kind of a spotlight for everybody a little bit here on the video. I really want to, odds are you guys don't have all these champions, but I really want to kind of assess his damage compared to some of these other damage dealers, right? Stock, as well as Cernic. In Artak, right? I don't expect anybody to be able to outdamage the beast that is Artak. I have Artak in Regen and Immortal Gear, so we can solo the Ice Golem if necessary, but we do have a Reviver on the team in Lady Noelle, so I think in this team, we won't need him to solo, and that's ironically going to actually add a little extra time to the table. So let's see how he does here. He's right over here. You can see. I didn't even notice his damage. Oh, that's his A1. 121k is really good. I mean, these are level 350 hard 10 mobs, and there's no decreased defense. Really nice to come in there with the block buffs, with the leech, right? So now everybody's going to be nice and healed. Just really nice to have that on your team. That combination of those 2 debuffs on your team. I'm trying to think if there's anybody in the game who has both of those on a 3-turn AoE. None come to mind. I could be wrong, but none come to mind. So it's a unique combo there, to say the least. And then keep in mind, any wave content, he's going to be great. He's going to stay alive. He's going to neutralize the Valkyries, the Man-Eaters. I always say the same 2 champions when I talk about block buffs, but those are some of the most annoying, right? Or the unkillable champions. There's a million of them. The Alsgors of the world, the block damagers, right? It's going to be nice to have them on your squad. Again, heal everybody, mitigate their buffs, do some damage. The trifecta. All right, so let's see how we do here. Stock goes in. Hopefully he has one of his AoEs up right now. Yep, so he goes in with that was the A2. So you saw the damage there. He took a lot of damage on that counterattack, but we're doing a lot of damage. And Lady Noelle's dead. So there goes our Reviver. It might be Artak to the rescue here. It is going to be Artak. It's a shame because I actually ran this team right before I hit record, and they just all stayed alive and did fine. But a lot of it is the RNG of the unkillable from Cernic. Either way, you saw like a little bit of his damage. I would say for an HP-based champion in PvE content, it's going to be, good, not great. Is that fair? Yeah, good, not great. Like, solid, very solid. I think for me, the magic or the cool thing about this champion is when you put everything together, what he's doing can be extremely valuable to your team. He's bringing a lot, and the damage too. Let's check out the damage at the end of this battle. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, so I just redid the run, right? Stopped it, redid it, so that way everybody could stay alive at the end. So just give him a fair shot damage-wise, and I think this is exactly accurate with what I saw the first time. So Belz actually out-damaged Stock which was pretty cool. Obviously, coming in there with all those poisons, especially on the wave content for stock. Our attack with all the burns and then the burn activations and whatnot was going to be the lead in the clubhouse. No surprises there. Everybody out damaging a disappointing Sir Nick, who's built to be a nuker here. So anyway, guys, that's the type of damage that he can bring on top of all the buffs that we've already talked about. Also note that he is not awakened here, so he has that going against him as well. Let's run him in a Hydra team, guys. What are we waiting for? Let's do this. All right, guys, got a team all set up here with Belz. We got Mikage in there for the buff manipulation. We have Turvold in there. We have as our main DPS. We have Molly in there as our provoker. We have Belz in there to bring everything that he brings. And then we have Ugo. A lot of people might not think we should run Ugo on the same team as Belz. Why have two block buffs champions? Well, honestly, look at these affinities, right? We have to, I mean, there's 3 magic affinities. We don't want to deal with poison clouds all over the battle. It's going to screw up the entire run. So I don't mind, especially on this rotation, going with a 2 block buffs champions of both colors of the magic and spirit. That way we have everything nice and covered because, you know, the team's no good dead. We're not going to be able to put up a high Hydra clash score if everybody's dead on the squad. So let's take a look. Belz is all the way on the left-hand side. He went in with the, was that the A2? I apologize. I missed the very beginning of the battle blabbing to you guys. But he went in there, maybe the A3, maybe the A2. Damage wasn't out of this world or anything like that. But again, his damage is going to escalate over time. I didn't see what debuffs were up. Here it goes. His A, that was his A2. So around 80K or so. Nothing too crazy. But let's see how he does at the end of the day here. He's kind of a right in between a main damage dealer and a debuffer for our squad, right? That's his A1. I love his A1 for a few reasons. Number one is the damage is great, but I think that decreased defense on A1s on any champion in this game is super underrated for Hydra Clan Boss. Sometimes it's an afterthought. A lot of people don't give it any credit. They're like, okay, so what? And decreased defense on the A1. But for me, the reason it's so valuable is because a lot of times we're killing the Hydra head, and it has probably a fresh decreased defense, right? In some situations. And then we're dealing with the exposed neck with no decreased defense, right? And when they spawn, same thing with a newly spawned Hydra head, right? We get that debuff on them either vis-a-vis the A1 or vis-a-vis the ally attack, and oftentimes it can add up to significant extra damage throughout the duration of the battle. Anyway, going on, let's pick apart this team here. How can we make it better, guys? So far, the damage isn't bad. You know, obviously with time, we'll start to ramp things up, hopefully. What are we missing? Well, the biggest thing that we're missing is Hex. I have Estrid in a 9-piece protection for this particular team because we don't have Hex. I would want to swap her out for a curse set. So that would be the first choice that we make to optimize this team. Beyond that, we don't have a block debuffs and we don't have a cleanser. We have Ugo, which is great, but we don't have a lot of cleansing, right? So, however, I think we could probably get by with that. So I think that overall, I like the team. Look at that. That was pretty good damage there on his A2. AoE attack with the leech there, right? He's true feared right now. Head of Torment is up. Let's see how he does at the end of this battle. It's obviously, you can see the damage ratio right now. What about you guys on your account? 2 questions for you before we cut here. Number one is, how many of your battles, your Hydra battles, do you auto versus manual at this point? Me personally, I manual 1 battle on my best team on Ultra Nightmare every rotation. And the rest, I just try to optimize the most damage I can going full auto because I don't have 6 hours a week to be running Hydra. That's how I do it. What about you guys? And number 2 is on your account. This is Nightmare difficulty. Or is it Brutal? I think it's Brutal difficulty. The second hardest difficulty. What would you say about this damage right now? 19 turns. Odds are, if you're like I am, you have a pretty good barometer of how your team's doing early on just by the early turn to damage ratio, right? So what would you think? I would think this is pretty lackluster. I would probably look to get in a damage dealer for a better damage dealer for an Ugo or a Belz or something like that, or I'd look for a higher damage provoker and try to get by without the revive on Molly, and I would add in the Hex. Like, that's what I would do to start to get more out of this team on my account. What about you guys? Let me know what you would do, or if you think this is great damage, average, below average. We'll see at the end of the battle. One thing I can say about this team is it's going to be a super easy 1-key, and I hope we're not going to wipe, because we have a lot of support with the Ugo and like a lot of the essential debuffs on the squad as well, and the reviver on Molly Tankard. So guys, I'll come back at the end of this one. Hopefully Belz deals enough damage to help get Turvold out. Granted, against a magic affinity as well is not super helpful, but let's just see how we do. I'll keep you for one more second. Rescue Turvold, because he's like doing all the heavy Okay, we rescued Turvold. That's the good news. The bad news is, even with 2 block buffs champions on the team, we're going to deal with a stupid poison cloud. Yikes. Not ideal. And look at all that reflect damage. Okay. On further thought, a buff remover, a Mishinaki or something, might be very valuable on this team. You know what? How about we redo this run with Mishinaki instead of Ugo, and we chance it? I think, sorry guys, hopefully you don't mind the theory crafting is a very strong word for what we're doing here, but I'm sure you guys, a lot of you guys are like me, right? Where this is kind of how you try to optimize teams, right? I just want to see if he has gear on. Okay, he's all right. What do we have on him right now? We need, okay, he has Slayer. Okay, I like that. I like that. His accuracy is very low. Let's just throw on an accuracy. Wait, what is the next Slayer? Okay, crit damage. We can do without that. He's pretty slow though. So let's priority stat speed, accuracy, and see what we have available. Gamaran, what you got, man? 18 speed, or should we steal it from Ninja and get 28? Yeah, I think I'll steal it from Ninja and get 28. All right, I think we'll fare better with this team. Now, instead of an Ugo, we're sacrificing a little bit on the support, and we don't have those 2 block buffs anymore, but now we have a buff remover in Mishinaki and a bit more damage, which will be helpful. So let's see how this team does, guys. I will run it all the way out, and we'll take a look at his damage overall and have a final evaluation on Belz when we return. Be right back. All right, guys, here with 14 turns left, things are kind of sort of maybe falling apart, but that tends to happen at the end of the runs. So far, the team like pretty much impressed me, you know, like they did what they're supposed to do. Things got a little rocky at times. We had a couple deaths, but Molly stepped up to the table, kept everybody alive. The leech helped out Turvold tremendously, helped out everybody, honestly. So not bad. We made it. The gauntlet. Can we make it? Yeah, we can make it. We only have 4 turns to go here, right? And overall, I would say that this champion can help out a lot of players out there, right? We didn't do a Chimera battle because it's been an hour here. Actually, it's only been a half an hour. It feels like it's been an hour. But let's see how he did at the end of the day here. So Esther got 19 million. Belz got 35 million damage, which isn't that bad, really. You know, we're talking about close to the Mishinaki territory. Michinaki's awakened. He's empowered. Obviously, no one's going to touch Turvold, the main DPS of the squad. But overall, I mean, we're getting competent heals, competent debuffs, and a nice amount of damage with the decreased defense on that A1, all from this champion who I feel like can benefit most accounts, the majority of counts out there, if not, well, in Hydra, and probably other areas like Chimera as well. So guys, let me know what you think of this champion in the comments below. Much love, and as always, take care, guys.